It's 2005 in a Providence, Rhode Island nursing home. A tiny kitten named Oscar is adopted as a therapy cat. He's aloof, he avoids people, preferring to keep to himself and wander the hallways. Then the nurses start noticing a pattern. Every once in a while, Oscar walks into a specific patient's room, climbs into their bed, and curls up beside them. Within hours, that patient dies. Oscar went on to correctly predict over 25 deaths in a row. He became so accurate that the medical staff started calling family members the moment he chose someone's bed, giving them a final window to say goodbye. His story reached the New England Journal of Medicine, sparking a debate that moved from the nursing home hallways to the broader scientific community. To understand how he did it, we have to determine if animals are operating with a sixth sense, or if they are simply detecting biological realities that humans are blind to. The dying process is a physical breakdown. As the body moves toward death, it releases specific chemical byproducts like ketones and volatile organic compounds into the air. Humans have roughly 6 million olfactory receptors. Dogs have up to 300 million. They can detect odors at concentrations 100,000 times lower than we can. In forensic tests, cadaver dogs identified carpet squares exposed to a recently deceased person 98% of the time, even after only 10 minutes of exposure. When Oscar sniffed a patient's breath and hair before settling in, he was likely registering a biochemical signature that no doctor in the building could perceive. These predictions aren't premonitions. They are the result of superior biological hardware reading a chemical reality. Detecting the physical approach of death is a matter of hardware, but how animals process the aftermath of death requires looking at behavior through a different lens. For much of the last century, scientists described animal reactions to death as mechanical instinct, an evolved attachment reflex that simply hasn't turned off. Elephants challenge that view. When a herd member dies, they gather to touch and gently inspect the remains with their trunks. They show intense interest in elephant bones, while ignoring the remains of rhinos or hippos. Herds have been documented returning to these specific sites months or years later, standing over the remains in silence. Juvenile elephants mimic these adult mourning gestures. This suggests the behavior is a learned cultural practice rather than a reflexive instinct. Even Charles Darwin noted these intense emotional reactions, questioning what a companion feels when staring at a dying member of the herd. The complexity and duration of these rituals suggests that for these animals, the absence of a companion is processed as a social loss rather than a mechanical error. This behavior spans the kingdom. Chimpanzees hold vigils where they groom the body and permanently alter their sleep patterns to avoid the spots they once shared with the deceased. In 2018, a mother orca carried her dead calf to the surface for 17 days, refusing to let go for 1,000 miles of ocean. Crows gather in large groups around a fallen pier, calling out in specific patterns to process the localized danger that caused the death. Domestic dogs display the same clinical markers of grief we see in humans, including severe lethargy, withdrawal from play, and a loss of appetite. Because these specific responses appear across entirely different evolutionary branches, grief appears to be a widespread biological response to permanent loss. Skeptics often argue that we are simply projecting human emotions onto animals, interpreting this placed attachment reflex as something deeper. However, the neurology of social species like apes, elephants, and orcas reveals a specific type of cell. This split-screen schematic shows the placement of von Economo neurons in both a human and a great ape brain. These neurons are the biological processors for social awareness and emotional grief. In humans and these social animals, the hardware for processing loss is nearly identical. Grief is an ancient survival tool. It helps social groups reinforce their bonds and consolidate memories about those who mattered to the herd. Whether Oscar the cat philosophically understood death or just biologically sensed it, his presence provided a bridge for dozens of families. His ability to bear witness means that even at the very end, we aren't as alone as we think.